Full disclosure, before I give anybody suggestions on games this weekend, I went 3-12. I think that is the worst week that I've ever had.
What is up, everybody? Thank you guys for joining us. As usual, we're going to give you our Saturday picks, even though we're releasing it on a Friday night, and our celebrity guest pickers are only getting better and better. We know Taylor Hicks was ripping the harmonica, went 5-0, but we got the founder.
That's a tough standard.
It's tough. We'll see if we get
especially for a singer to crush.
It's like the time we tried to get Abe Lincoln. They said he was dead, but we're going to reach out anyway. The founder of Outkick, Clay and Buck on the radio, but most importantly, character actor from Lady Ball.
You guys deserve a lot of credit for that movie. We had Matt Walsh on Clay and Buck today, getting ready going into the weekend to try to drive some interest. Mm-hmm. And I do think there's such an interesting dynamic where everybody in Hollywood basically decided they're not going to be funny anymore.
Yep. Yes.
Because they're so afraid. I really think it is offending all of the different interest groups and identity groups. And as a result, I really think Lady Baller's super funny, awesome. Yeah. You guys were incredible in it. It was lots of fun to be a small part of it. And then Matt's movie is genuinely really, really well done.
Yeah. Oh, it's really well done. And and Matt's so perfect.
Yes.
Like he did, like the way he's able, what is a woman being, kind of what it was. And then him going all in the other way on this one.
And I told him, he kind of has, there's a lot of Larry David cringe humor in it, which is really well done. But also a lot of the best of Ali G, Barat back in the day. Yes. And I thought he nailed it. So I would encourage people to go check that out if they haven't. Obviously, if you haven't seen Lady Ballers, you're wasting your life. Go make sure you do that.
And Clay's great in that as well. I do want to say, growing up, I feel spoiled now, and I'm hoping it makes a return. I mean, we had old school.
No doubt,
right?
Which is still phenomenal.
You had dodgeball. You had all these ones that nobody was afraid. Super bad.
Tropic Thunder.
Which there's no way you can make that nowadays. I'm hoping, Clay, that we can get a resurgence of that, but hopefully we can get men out of women's sports first, and then maybe get a resurgence.
Well, I think, look, for sure, men out of women's sports would be nice, but I do think when you establish that there is a market for something, ultimately, Hollywood responds to money, right?
Yeah,
that's the name of the game. And over time, if you can establish that there is a marketplace for this, and I think there certainly is, if anything, it's more ripe than it ever was before because so many
reemergence, the rebirth.
That's right.
It's
and everything is cyclical, and I think there is white, black, Asian, Hispanic, particularly among men, a real rejection of this idea of you're a victim, you're offended, and that there's something to be proud of when that happens to you, right?
For sure. Well, it's again, we laughed when they changed the Redskins name. I wish they were the Washington Caucasian White guys.
Yeah.
Like that'd be great. I would love for that to be the name. But speaking of money and resurgences, you look at Nebraska, USC is apparently playing defense. David, there's some games this weekend, but I want to before we get there though. Clay, you had a rough betting weekend this past week.
In full disclosure, before I give anybody suggestions on games this weekend, I went 3-12. I do public picks on Outkick. I've done it. I think it says on here, Outkick was founded in 2011. So I've done, what is the math on that? 13 years of public picks on Outkick. I think that is the worst week that I've ever had.
And that's really not that bad. You won 3.
Well, you know what was funny? It was so bad. I won the Tennessee-Kent State game. But I was having such a bad week that I was afraid they were going to shorten the second half.
Exactly.
And throw that win out the window.
Yeah. What do
and
you
I was
think
that would really be the
right
capstone on.
Because that was one of my Get Off My Lawn episodes. If you're scheduling an opponent that's, I hate to say weak, but so inferior that you have to play 10 or even 5-minute quarters.
South Alabama
87 points, 5-minute third quarter.
And you lost the win there.
So Clay, what happened was, and it's so funny you brought this up, because I don't think they know what to do with it. It happened the first week. A couple times, and they voided all.
Yeah, that's right.
They voided all
Arkansas.
But so my wife had who's just like it's like the lady who wins the office bracket.
Yeah.
Had a parlay, like a weekday parlay, and she had the over in the South Alabama Northwestern State game, but had Northwestern State plus 36.5. And what they did was they voided the side, but kept the over because it hit. So I have no idea where they're going with this. I don't even know.
If I ran a book, I would just go ahead and pay out everybody on that game.
Yeah, you have to.
Because there's probably not that many people who bet it.
Yeah, for sure.
But, when at halftime, Heupel went to Kent State and/or Tennessee's management did, whoever did it, and said, hey, do you want running clock in the second half? And if they had done that, or if they had shortened quarters, I was afraid that despite getting my teeth kicked in on all the bets, that it was going to go even worse than 3 and 12.
Didn't they ask Lane to do it? And Kip was like, no, we're going to play the full, because both sides have to agree.
Who's shocked?
Yeah. He's like, I got to win Jackson the Heisman.
All right, before we get to these 5 games that we're going to pick, what are your thoughts overall in the college football landscape right now, 3 weeks in? A lot of storylines. Florida State hadn't won a game.
Yeah.
Talking about possibly firing Billy Napier at Florida already, which wasn't a huge surprise. Notre Dame kind of up and down, trying to get that spot in the college football playoff. What are your thoughts?
I love college football, and I've been in favor of an expanded playoff for a long time because we're not even there yet. But as we get into late October and early November, you guys know one of the real frustrating things, if your team wasn't very good, 90% of teams are eliminated from being able to contend for conference championships or a national championship by the time you get to November. And one of the things they found with Major League Baseball, with the NHL, with the NFL, and the NBA is expanding the number of teams that make the playoffs makes people care more about the regular season. So I'm excited about it. I think we'll enter November with 30 or 35 teams being able to look and say, hey, if we win these 3 or 4 games, we're in. We're going to be right on the edge. And I also think that in the NIL era, the number of teams making the playoffs is going to expand the number of schools that kids are interested in looking at. Because when you're only seeing the same 4 teams basically in the playoff all the time, I think that's a huge calling card for the Alabamas of the world, historically, Clemson before they fell off. And now suddenly you're looking around, you're saying, okay, maybe an Ole Miss can make it. And maybe Tennessee's going to be back in the mix. And I think that just expands the overall landscape of schools that kids look at.
Though there is a number you can reach in the playoffs before the regular season does get watered down. This is true in baseball too, and the MLB already has a regular season problem with 162. So is 12 the right number? Is this where we're going to stay, or is it just it's automatically going to go to 16?
I would go to 16, but I would eliminate conference championship games.
Wow.
Across the board.
Across the board. And I would just say, hey, if 3 teams finish 11-1, we used to back in the day give co-championships. I think that the team that loses the conference championship is going to have such a competitive disadvantage because they're going to have to turn around and play. So, for instance, let's say you had 2 12-0 SEC teams playing, which has happened, right? In Atlanta, that one team loses. Okay, the one that wins gets the 1 seed, gets a bye. The team that loses has to turn around and play as a 5 seed or whatever it's going to be. So either I would eliminate conference title games completely. I also don't like the idea of giving automatic 4 conference champions the bye. Because I think you could end up with teams that would otherwise be seeded 8, 9, maybe not even make the playoffs, getting into that final 4 or getting into the final 8 automatically. So I would go straight 16. I would start it with maybe the week after, give everybody a bye week, and then go straight in. I would, if I had a magic wand, I would eliminate all the conference championship games, and I would seed 1 to 16. I would play first, second, and third round games all on campus, just like the NFL does. And then I would go neutral site game for the championship, like the Super Bowl does, put it out for bid, rotate it around. I think that it's going to become a big discussion. A lot of fans aren't going to be able to afford to follow their teams.
Oh, well, especially if the economy keeps going the way,
And that to me is unfair because you work all season and then you tell somebody, hey, you got to be in 3 or 4 different cities in the space of a month right before Christmas. You got kids, you got responsibilities.
It's like college basketball, right? Like teams that keep advancing. I do, Clay, to that point. I think 16 is the number because I don't think on one hand we have this big player safety push. Then on the other hand, you can keep 12 regular season games and keep adding these playoff games in the end. I don't think those two things can exist together. But where I think they would go with it, and I can see what you're saying in the conference championship is that money and the revenue they get from those conference championship games are going to dwarf probably most of the regular season games they play. Where I see it going is to a 16-team playoff. They keep the conference championship and they say, you know what? We played an 11-game regular season for so long. Let's take out 1 regular season game and keep those conference championship games. It's cool because there's so many different ways.
I think most people, in the same way, if you're a diehard college basketball fan, most people really don't care that much about the conference basketball tournaments anymore. because you're going to have, in a big conference, SEC, Big Ten now, ACC, you're going to have 5, 6, 7 teams that are making it. And so people don't care who wins the conference. If you make the Final Four, people are like, it was an amazing season, even if you finish 6th in your conference during the regular season. Then you can argue about whether that's good or bad for college basketball. I think what it leads to is people only pay attention, by and large, to college basketball in March.
Yeah.
It's a kind of
which is a true thing. Like, that's a
which is a
real
1
thing.
month season, and everybody becomes an expert when they get their brackets and everything else. But I don't think the numbers are so large of who's making the playoffs that at 16 you would worry about devaluing the regular season. I do think you have to be careful. The other reason I don't like conference championships is, what are you going to do when it's Ohio State, Michigan, and they're already slotted to play back-to-back weeks?
Yeah, and you already know the conference championship matchup. That's where it gets a little interesting. Sometimes you're going to have to play into
But I like your bye week idea.
But then not only would the scheme change, maybe you don't show as much at the end of the regular season. The game's still going to matter, right? Like the maximum time you can play for some of these rivalries like the Iron Bowl or like the game is 3. That's 2 more than what we've normally seen. But you're right. Do you sit a player? Do you sit a start? Do you change up your scheme so much? Like that's
it's much lower level football, but as soon as we finish here, I'm going to an 8th grade football.
Which is great. Yeah, it's so much
my 8th grade son, like, he's obsessed with it here in the local Nashville area, but they're in the championship game.
Good.
And so I asked my son, like, hey, what's the, I just texted with him before I was coming in. I was like, hey, what's the game plan? And he said, everybody's on a snap count. So they're already in the championship game. So even in 8th grade football, we got strategy.
Them up.
Well, it's the conference. The conference basketball. The conference basketball tournament argument is so true, because it's to the point now where you have fans that are like, look, let's lose early, get a couple extra days of rest, because we're going to be seated. It's an interesting argument.
All right, top 5 matchups of this weekend, week 4, and then we'll get your thoughts on Alabama taking on Georgia next weekend. First one up, though, Michigan is going to host USC after the Michigan
You're the expert
Texas
here.
game. Well, and your wife's alma mater too,
that's right?
I took my son to his first college football game when they played Texas. We all had to sit through that in person together. We're not going to let the score ruin our trip there, but that line jumped after the Michigan-Texas game. So USC minus 5.5 right now. Over under 44.5. Jake, you start.
Well, I'm interested. This is a litmus test for USC. Say what you want about Michigan. They can't, Orgy can't throw the ball from me to you. Like I said, they got an Orgy in the backfield, but it's not nearly as exciting as it sounds. I want to see if that physicality is going to carry over, because Michigan is going to test you physically up front. It's like Zoolander. It's the same move, right? They can't turn left, but they can for sure turn right. Was that a flash in the pan against LSU, seeing, not just lining up right and the scheme, but being able to get downhill and set the tone physically, right? I want to see that against Michigan to see if it'll carry over, because then I will officially say, not only is USC a problem in the Big Ten, but this team could maybe win some games in the playoff. The one thing that worries me, David, and we talked about this, Miller Moss got away with taking a lot of chances. He's a gunslinger against LSU. This is a game where Lincoln's going to catch you 2 or 3 times. And if they play clean, I don't think Michigan has enough to be able to score enough past 17 points to win it. I like USC to win it. Would not be shocked, though, if Michigan covers the 6.5, whatever.
Play who wins.
Under is my bet. I've already bet it. I love the under here. New quarterback coming in. I think Michigan, Sharon Moore, a little bit of pressure maybe for the first time in his career. Is going to take a little bit of air out of the football. I think they know they have talent on the defensive side of the ball, but I agree with you. I don't think they have explosive offensive playmakers. And SC does. And so I think they have to look at this and say, hey, we can't get down 14 points. We can't get down 10 points. We don't have the ability to come back. I think Michigan keeps it close. If I were betting, I would take the Michigan side here plus the points. But I love the under. I just think this is going to be more of a defensive struggle. I think it's going to look more like Michigan did last year. And I also think when you look at SC and how they did in that game against LSU, after watching Nichols, after watching what LSU did against South Carolina, guys, I don't think South Carolina's got a lot of offensive playmakers either. They should have won that game in Columbia. I'm not sure that SC is as good as we think SC is, so I would take Michigan. But the bet that I already made, now be aware I was 3-12 last week, but the bet I love
the under. I literally
took the under already.
I opened a show before the year saying take the Michigan under in every single game. Got it before it went down.
Iowa last year. I hit almost every time last year. Who you got?
Look, the more I look at this game, the more I like Michigan. This smells like a trap game.
To win
the game straight out right. And the thing about it is this, I go back to what y'all said earlier against that LSU game. I think we found out more about LSU than we did about USC after that. I think LSU, we got lied to the entire year how good their offensive line was, how they're going to kick everybody's ass in the run game. You didn't see that against USC, and you didn't see that against South Carolina.
Didn't see it against Nichols.
Didn't see it against Nichols either at all. So this game, I think, and one, you bring Davis Warren out, so the turnovers are gone. The three, he completed every pass, and 3 of them were to the other team. They're going to play a game called we're going to turn around and get 3-4 yards with Mullins and all these guys, Alex Orji, QB runs, QB power, QB zone. You're going to see that the whole game. And the big thing that's been hurting Michigan the entire year is third downs on defense.
Yes. Yep.
Wink Martindale has to change something, quit bringing as much pressure, sit back, let your athletes make plays. I think Miller Moss makes key mistakes and key moments in this game, and the run game finally comes through for Michigan. So give me Michigan.
Wow.
Preach, brother, preach. I mean, the premise before the season was if Michigan gets average quarterback play, can the offensive line be good enough for them to win the 10 games you're going to need to be in college football playoff contention, provided that they have the best defense in the country? Well, the quarterback play has been sub-average, and the defense is far from the best in the country. You're talking Wink Martindale has doubled the blitz percentage.
I don't know why.
And I don't understand when your front four is
It's going to
so
hurt
strong.
you. Do you know what the look-ahead line is right now for the Ohio State game?
19.5.
You're right.
I'm worried about USC.
Yeah, look ahead.
I've already bet
19 and a half.
19.5 Ohio
I've already
State.
bet it.
And I love Ohio State at 19 and a half.
Obviously, I have the under. Took it early in the week. Remember, the under against Texas opened at 45 and a half. Went down 1 point every day until Saturday. I woke up in Ann Arbor. It was 41 and a half. The combined score was 32-12. So I hope you got it early in the week. Obviously, I'm taking the under to win the football game. I have to take USC. I'm going to be decked out in Michigan gear Saturday. I'm going to be rooting on the blue, but I'm going to take USC to win.
You're not going, though, this time.
No.
Never again.
I'll be here.
Yeah,
But we'll be wearing. We'll
beer's
be wearing our
cheap and the
Michigan
bathroom's
gear.
always open.
right.
We'll be wearing our Michigan gear. Second game up, Georgia Tech 3-1 is going to go on the road to play an undefeated Louisville team right now. That's 10.5. Louisville, a lot of points, and 58.5 on the over/under.
I loved what Braum did last year, and I always love it when somebody comes into a place and it's the other side of the ball that they're not known for that really puts them where they ended up. And outside of the Kentucky game, Louisville was a big surprise in a good way last year, and a lot of it was defensively. Well, you bring in Tyler Shuck from Texas Tech, who's been beat up his whole career. He's stayed healthy this far. He's better than Jack Plummer. But I tell you what, this Georgia Tech team and Brent Key, I love a good offensive line head coach that isn't stubborn. I don't think he's stubborn. Buster Faulkner, a friend of ours, they're going to do a really good job with motions. Louisville hasn't been tested this year yet. Remember, Lacey's still hurt. I love Ja'Cory Brooks, the transfer from Bama. He's really come into his own. They're 4 or 5 deep at running back. But Haynes King has made one of the biggest jumps from a quarterback, from going to somebody that looked flustered to somebody that is able to not only put a good product through the air, but he's using his legs and keeping his eyes downfield to extend the play, which is a former defensive coordinator still keeps. So wake up in the middle of the night and, still think about it. I know it's a decent-sized spread. A lot of people are hot on Louisville. Jeff Brom's a hell of a coach, and I think he's going to be there for a while. But I think they find a way. I think Haynes, not only the running back, but also the quarterback. Give me Georgia Tech.
I like it.
As the dog in this one.
Clay?
I like Georgia Tech plus the points in this one as well. You just laid through. What I love about what Key is doing at Georgia Tech is he's building through the offensive and defensive lines. And sometimes it feels to me like Brom's team wants to play in the clouds. Now, I know they've had success early with defense, but I like the physicality of Georgia Tech. 10.5 seems like a lot. I have not bet this one, so maybe you'll love it. I would take the under 58.5 because I think that Georgia Tech is going to dictate pace and tempo some. ACC's wide open outside of Miami. I don't know what you guys think. This game at South Florida, I think could be really intriguing for Miami. They haven't been tested. They really whipped Florida week 1, but they haven't played anybody since. So I'm curious to see in the Georgia Tech-Louisville game. We don't know a lot about Clemson necessarily yet. Hey, who is going to rise up and be that team that really is going to give Miami a run? But I like Georgia Tech plus the 10.5, and I would go under.
Let's go,
I'm flipping the other way. Give me Louisville in the 10.5. The one thing I do, and you brought it up earlier, is Louisville used to be a offensive team. They want to beat you to track meet. Jeff Brom comes there now. We're going to start with the defense. The biggest thing I got let down from Georgia Tech, which Florida State screwed everybody, is their defense is still a problem. It's not as good as we thought it was. I mean, you give up 340 passing yards against Cal McCord, 160 rushing yards against Syracuse. Jeff Brom and Louisville about to come in here and probably get whatever they want. Haynes King and what Brent Key does on offense is phenomenal with the counters, the misdirection. That's all good and all, but if you can't stop the other team, it's going to be trouble.
The perimeter defense.
I trust Louisville's defense a lot more than I trust Georgia Tech, so give me Louisville on the points.
All right, I'm going to split the difference here. I like Georgia Tech with the points, but I'm going to take Louisville to win the game outright. And I have to say, it is a lot of fun to know coaches on both staffs. And you guys coach for a long time, so you guys know a lot of these guys. But Ron English, the defensive coordinator at Louisville, was our DC at Michigan. The job that he's done there the last 2 seasons has been phenomenal. Obviously, Buster Faulkner, a friend of ours, a friend of our show. He's going to have a great game plan going into this. How much Q count are you going to see from Haynes King?
You're going to
Ron English gonna have
Buster's going to motion the slot and see if you're in man. That's what he's going to do first. Then you're going to get that quarterback run. Here's a little, if you want a prop bet, I don't think he'd be crazy to sprinkle a little bit on overtime in this game.
Ooh, I like that.
We could possibly have an overtime.
I like that. All right, next one up here. Auburn hosting Arkansas. Interesting game. Both programs 2-1 in different places. The programs are in different places, but Auburn favored by 2.5 right now. Jake, I see that look on your face. 56.5. Why is the line 56.5? Why isn't it 69?
As I said yesterday, if putting together Auburn's football program at Arkansas is actually the main ingredient they put in Four Locos. Not a lot of people know.
Yeah.
They are in two different places. Obviously, Hugh Freeze is trying to get the roster, around the quarterback position right and then get the quarterback position right. We'll see with Hank Brown. If I'm Travis Williams early in this game, I'm playing a ton of jump coverage. They're going to want him to throw fastballs early to get him in a rhythm. I'm not going to let you do that, whether it's hitches, whether it's slants, and then obviously the run game as well. Blaine, I thought, said it the best. I think this is going to be a game where nobody wins it, somebody's going to lose it. We saw Arkansas not know how to handle prosperity on the road against Oklahoma State when they had dominated really every facet of that game. Which thrower in Taylon Green are we going to get? Are we going to get the guy we saw against Oklahoma State who looked like he could throw it well enough to let that run game really come on with him? Or are we going to get the Taylon Green we saw against UAB who, to quote Blaine, couldn't hit a blind kid with a fishing pole? So if I'm Arkansas, Bobby Petrino is going to try and take Taylon out of harm's way from a throwing standpoint because Auburn isn't very athletic defensively. I think Arkansas leads this game the whole way until about halfway through the fourth quarter. I think Auburn's going to tie it up 24-24. And then Towns Magoo, one of the greatest names in college football, is going to hit a 42-yard field goal from the right middle.
42.
Auburn's going to win 27-24.
What you got, Clay?
So if these guys really had everything rolling, Bobby Petrino against Hugh Freeze would be one of the most entertaining possible games we could have, right? I watched that Auburn collapse against Cal.
Oh, Clay.
5 turnovers. I watched Green last week against UAB be unable, to your point. He was 6 for 17 passing.
And it was if there's such thing as a bad, even worse 6 for 17, that was it.
And so I'm actually inclined to take the under here because I think both quarterbacks are somewhat unreliable. I think that both Petrino and Hugh Freeze deep down know that. And so to your point, I think that they are going to try to avoid making the mistake. It's also interesting to me sometimes psychologically to think about this. If Arkansas wins and goes to 3-1, Razorback fans are going to think that the world is the greatest thing that's ever happened. If Auburn loses to Arkansas and falls to 2-2, I know Hugh Freeze is recruiting like crazy right now and has a lot of elite talent coming in. But there's going to start to be questions about, hey, we lost to Cal, we lost to Arkansas, and we got a lot tougher teams still left on this schedule. I think Auburn will find a way to win it. It's hard for me to bet on this Arkansas team with the quarterback play that I saw against UAB, but I think they'll both kind of turtle up a little bit on the offensive side of the ball, try to run more. I would take Auburn, and I would take the under.
I like
what you got, man?
I think probably the most athletic guy on the field will be Taylon Green in this game. And watching Auburn play defense against New Mexico last week, not knowing who they are, dropping DNs, but dropping 8 and not covering the flats. I think there's a lot of problems at Auburn right now. I do think what I said, someone will lose this game. You're breaking in a new quarterback in Hank Brown at Auburn. I don't trust your defense. I don't trust is Cam Coleman going to play?
I think it's okay.
If Cam Coleman plays, that would put a little of a wrench in it. But right now, I've seen Arkansas get going. I saw Arkansas get going against Oklahoma State. I saw them clicking on all cylinders on offense. I haven't seen that out of Auburn on both sides of the ball.
Alabama A&M don't count.
No, that don't count to me. You didn't get better in that game, and that showed against Cal. So right now, I've seen enough from Arkansas to bet Arkansas to win this game.
Man, that's interesting. This is another one of those ones where it's like, even as I start my sentence, I don't know who I'm going to take, but I think I'm going to ride with you. I'm going to ride with you on Arkansas. You taking the under is very interesting because the under could hit on that. Like, my lock of the week is that there's going to be a ton of offense in in this game.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean a ton of points, though.
They could turn it over
Arkansas
in the
put up
red zone.
680 total yards of Oklahoma State. When the field restricts in the red zone and you create turnovers, that's the thing. I do think Auburn will find a way to turn Taylor Green over. The question is, how many times does that happen and what moments in the game does that happen? Give me Arkansas on the road for the upset. We'll squad ride that.
Let's do it, baby.
All right. Next one up, top 14 matchup in Stillwater. Oklahoma State going to host Utah. Before the season, we said this is one of the most interesting matchups in the Big 12 because Utah's not going to have to play Kansas State, and Oklahoma State's going to have to go on the road to play Kansas State the week after this one.
I typically don't worry about line movement too much at this point during the week because I'm already kind of cemented in what I think, unless it's Utah because of the history with Cam Rising. On Wednesday, Utah was a 2.5-point favorite on the road, right? On Thursday, it flipped to Oklahoma State being a 2.5-point favorite. And I know who Utah is, and the only way that I think it would flip like that is if they think something is wrong with Cam Rising. Doesn't mean that he's not going to play, but is he healthy enough to be that dual threat guy? Is it because it's his hand, right? It's his throwing hand. Is he healthy enough to be able to push the ball down the field against an Oklahoma State defense that, thank goodness for Utah, has struggled against the run? So even if he's not able to push the ball down the field to Dorian Singer and Money Parks, it's just an all-name team at Utah. And then obviously Keithy at tight end. I like Utah to win. I like Utah on the money line here. I would take them plus 3.5. I would buy that a point up. I don't like taking plus 2.5, just like I don't like taking plus 4.5, plus 9.5 or 10.5. I'm losing my mind. I think this is a game that Oklahoma State realizes we're going to have to stop the run and make them beat us on the outside because that's where the problem's been. That's why your safety leads the team in tackles, which is never a good situation. I think these two teams are going to meet again in the Big 12 championship. I picked Oklahoma State before the season to beat Utah and then lose to Utah in the Big 12 championship. But I tell you, teams change. We're 3 weeks in. Oklahoma State, even with teams stacking the box, have not found a way to get Ollie Gordon going still. They're taking advantage of people outside. How can you be ranked in the 100-something in rushing at Oklahoma State, yet scoring 42 points a game? That's because Bowman's figured it out. But give me Utah, Kyle Whittingham, balanced team.
You hit on my buddy Todd Furman. I don't know if you guys have ever had Todd Furman on.
Not on. I know.
But he's been my friend for a long time. And one of the things that he always likes to say is every line tells a story. And the story of that line is Cam Rising's not going to be able to play at a high level.
It's got to be, right?
I mean, that's the only thing that would move the line. Somebody knows something, and they have come in and they bet. And you guys know the numbers that you can bet aren't even very high right now. So that would make me think that come Saturday, we may even see more money come in. I took the under. And I took the under with the idea if Cam Rising's playing, he's probably not going to be close to 100%. And if that is the case, then I like Whittingham. In big games, it seems like he is a guy that wants to rely on his defense.
And they're physical.
They are. They're really good. And I agree with you. These teams have only played once in 1945. I like to see, styles make fights sometimes. Obviously, there's a big difference between what Whittingham wants to do and what we've seen for years and years Mike Gundy do. And Ollie Gordon is as dynamic as he has been. I watched that Arkansas game, and I've looked at what Oklahoma State does, and I just feel like Utah is going to be able to have a lot of success against them on the defensive side of the ball, even without Cam Rising. But without Cam Rising, it means to me if Utah is going to win, they're going to have to win like 21-17.
Yeah.
And
it's a good under bet.
That, to me, was why I'm taking the under and why I've already bet it.
God, that line is worrisome. But the one thing I do like about Utah, and I used to talk about this when they were in the Pac-12, I mean, they're built different, right? They're built more of a Big Ten, SEC type school. The physicality travels. Kyle Whittingham always preaches this, and that's why I always like Utah in these type of games. Kyle knows how to win big games, and even if Cam's not playing, I don't know how you can look at this Oklahoma State team and trust anything they do on defense. I mean, last year you go back and look at them with all the success that they have, they were one of the worst defenses in the nation of giving up big plays, and you saw that again against Arkansas. So right now I know a couple things. One, that defense travels. It's like rebounding, Jake. Rebounding always travels in basketball. Utah is going to be physical and pretty good on defense. Oklahoma State can't run the ball with one of the best running backs in the nation. And two, Alan Bowman looks good, but he's known to make big mistakes in big moments.
Yeah, and David, quickly, remember, Utah, I don't think, is going to have to funnel resources in the box like Arkansas did to stop the run. That's why things have been open in the back end and on the side for Alan Bowman with Stribling and Owens.
They can play hat-to-hat.
Because you're having to rob Peter to pay Paul. I don't think Utah's got to do that.
By the way, what about Bowman's seventh-year quarterback getting flagged for celebration near the end?
Oh, yeah.
Talking Hey, team.
One of the great lines, and I don't know how intentional he was being funny with this, but he's like, he's got to be smarter than that. He has his real estate license.
That's exactly right.
That's like Matt Walsh's DEI license.
Yes, I mean,
Clay, somebody asked me if Alan Bowman is working on his graduate degree. I was like, graduate degree? He's on freaking
That was
doctorate.
years ago.
Yeah.
I do think Oklahoma State will get up for this game in a very similar way they got up for Bedlam a year ago when they beat Oklahoma. I think you'll see the best version of Oklahoma State that you can see. And if Cam Rising doesn't play, I do think we're in for a dogfight. This could be your overtime pick.
Zach Wilson's little brother.
Like if Zach Wilson's little brother played, which he did good enough job to win last week. It's just in a similar way what we were talking about Michigan. If you're a run-first identity team, you got to run it better than Oklahoma State is. And maybe this will be when it breaks out. Remember, Ollie Gordon, we weren't really talking about him the first 3 or 4 weeks last year. It was more towards the middle of the season. Maybe this is the week, but I'm going to take Utah. I trust Utah more, especially if Cam Rising plays. And that brings us to the game of the week.
Yeah.
Tennessee going on the road to Norman, baby.
There you go.
Boy, I tell you, this has got a little bit of everything, right? You got 2 huge brands. You've got a huge storyline, not just with Josh Heupel going back to Oklahoma, but this being Oklahoma's first SEC game at home, kind of, walking into the asylum with us. I think Jackson Arnold's got an incredibly bright future. I think he's a little bit sneaky as a runner, too. He's not going to be able to get away with the things in this game he did with his legs against Tulane. Oklahoma is getting healthier on the outside and up front on the offensive line. But I will continue to ask the audience, I don't care who they've played. I know NC State isn't who we thought they were going to be at the beginning of the year so far. And I don't know if that game against Clemson is going to help, qualm those. But what is Tennessee bad at? Where are they weak? If I'm Brent Venables, I know I got to stop the run, but when you operate the way that Tennessee operates, and I always say this, and I really wish people would understand, they don't go fast just to make you tired. That's not the main reason they do it. That's a positive side effect of why they do it, but you can't disguise anything. They catch you in base. You can't creep guys late. You can't walk guys up and then walk them back. You have to show your cards. It's like playing Hold'em, but everybody's showing their cards the whole time. It's a lot easier to do math when there's no letters in it, and that's what Nico has been doing, but Tennessee finally has the depth on defense to get away with having 2 or 3 3-and-outs in a row going fast, which I think gives Heupel peace of mind. Yeah, they told him he won him a national championship as a player. Bob Stoops fired him and kept his brother when he was coaching there. It's Dark Heupel week. It's Tennessee welcoming Oklahoma to the show week. I would buy Oklahoma in a 5-year stretch. I'm not buying him in this game, and I don't think Josh is going to stop scoring when he gets up because he wants you to remember there's a reason you picked him over the other kid to come play quarterback at Oklahoma, and you fired him and you left him at the dance and you pointed at him and you laughed at him. He's going to be the one laughing at Norman this weekend. They're going to whip their ass for 4 straight quarters.
Goodness.
Damn.
You can write that one down.
Look, I like Tennessee by double digits. I know this number is stuck around 7.5. Here's where I think it's going to get decided. I think there are a lot of subplots. Josh Heupel going back, the night game, SEC welcome for Oklahoma, all those things. Nico is going to get a lot of attention. I think Tennessee's got elite playmakers around him. But I think when I look at this game and watch what we've seen through the first 3 weeks so far, the thing that is the most underrated is Tennessee's defensive line.
100%.
They are deep.
They're great.
They roll in a lot of guys. They have not had to go full bore. When you saw, they held NC State to 149 total yards.
Clay, they can run, dog.
They've got a lot of talent, and they can rotate in 12, 13 guys on the D-line. Oklahoma has had issues with health on the offensive line. I don't think that Jackson Darnold is a dynamic playmaker. Several years ago, this was the game, by the way, where Baker Mayfield introduced himself to the nation. Do you remember that?
Yep.
Tennessee got up early in Knoxville. They brought in Baker Mayfield. He took it to overtime. He won. Now, obviously, he's had a tremendous amount of success, but nobody knew him at that point in time. I think Nico has a good game, but I think the defensive line for Tennessee dominates the offensive line for Oklahoma. I don't think Oklahoma can get past 21 or so points if Tennessee doesn't allow them to score on defense and doesn't allow them to score on special teams. I think Tennessee's going to win this game by double figures. I also think this could get out of hand if Tennessee gets up a little bit early because it's going to make Oklahoma play in a way that they don't want to. And that then gets even more kind of like you're rolling downhill. So if Tennessee can come out with good energy, not fall behind early and allow the crowd to get into it, which I think they can, I think Tennessee pulls away, And that defense is actually the story more than Nico.
I completely agree. Everyone wants to talk about Nico or Jackson Arnold. This will be a line of scrimmage football game. Josh Heupel, with all the lights and all the beautiful things, what does he want to do?
Run the ball.
Josh wants to run the football, and they keep up tempo. And what I watched in that Tulane game, when Jackson Arnold started getting pressured, he started making mistakes.
And he got out quick.
And he got out quick. I'm telling you, and I know it's got brought up 7 times already, but not only the talent that Tennessee has on the D-line, but the depth, the bodies you can throw at Oklahoma for 4 quarters will show up. I agree. I think Tennessee, this is one of my locks of the absolute week. Tennessee, you could play this game up probably to 10.5 if you wanted to. Tennessee and Nico win big.
Well, I always love when guys in college football go back and coach at their alma maters. You know, like
Super
Jim
cool.
Harbaugh, Kirby Smart, Scott Frost. Well, it's also cool when they get to go coach against their alma maters.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's going to be an interesting storyline to follow. Brent Venables was on the coaching staff on that national championship team when Josh Heupel was there. And Venables is going to have the best possible plan you can have against this Tennessee offense, which is, you know, there's just so many ways they can hurt you, like you said, Jake. Venables will have the best plan. How long? It's one thing to go into a game with a plan. It's another thing to be able to execute that. Even when that Tony Gibson NC State defense was able to turn Nico over multiple times, he's so poised in the pocket, so calm, just carried on, was all about his business. To your point about Tennessee's defense now, with the depth that they have and the talent they have, it no longer forces Tennessee's offense to do anything.
They don't have to score 45.
You don't have to panic if there's a 3 and out or 2.
Yeah.
Like you had to kind of worry about that before. So I like Tennessee in the game. I like Tennessee big, the same as you guys do, but I think it'll be close early. Let's at least hope for a close ball game.
I'll give you one more factor to pay attention to. You're talking about prop bets. I think Tennessee is going to save Nico running the football for Oklahoma, Alabama, and Georgia.
That's interesting.
I don't think they want to get him a lot of hits.
Yeah.
But he reminds me a little bit, if I were trying to sketch out the best possible scenario, of Cam 2010, where if you remember that Auburn year, what Cam was in September was not what Cam was in November.
Oh, without
He really
a doubt.
grew into an elite playmaker. But early on, they recognized, hey, when it's 3rd and short, we can run him to get first downs. Tennessee and Heupel hasn't been great in 3rd and shorts because they, for whatever reason, they run out of the shotgun. They haven't had, Joe Milton, I don't think, was dynamic in terms of being able to like shifty. Hendon Hooker was. I think Nico on 3rd and short can get you a lot of conversions. 4th and short, they haven't really wanted to use him much. Yeah. They got to bye next week.
Yeah, huge.
I think this is a week where they say, hey, we got to go balls to the wall. We're going to use Nico as much as we need to in the run game. So just something to pay attention to on that prop bet.
And 100%. Also, having a quarterback that can run in the red zone is such a...
And they haven't done much at all with that.
You think they've done that on purpose?
They did it against Iowa. Yeah, I think they've tried to limit the hits on him. And I think they know that they have the talent to be able to beat a lot of these teams without needing to worry about it. I know Heupel's been like, dude, just throw the ball away. Don't try to get 3 yards.
We're up 37-0 in the first quarter.
We don't need you taking hits. This is a game where they are okay with him taking hits.
Yeah.
And if you remember the first game he played against Iowa,
he can run.
They ran a lot of read option down near the goal line. He had, I think, 3 rushing touchdowns. I think they're going to break that out a little bit again with the bye week coming, put a little bit of that on film. And look, if Tennessee can win this one, then you go back and you look and you say Bama in Knoxville, and then on the road at Georgia.
Yeah.
If you just win every other game, you get to 10-2, you're probably in the playoffs.
Well, there's a reason you don't bring out the good whiskey unless it's a special occasion.
That's right.
Hey, talking about bye weeks, we won't see you before Alabama hosts Georgia.
Yeah.
You're going to be at the game.
Yeah.
We're going to be at the game.
I'll see
we
you
can't
guys
wait
down
for
at
it. Really
the
cool
bar.
matchup, but no more divisions in the SEC. Georgia going on the road. What are your thoughts on that one quickly?
So the Georgia performance against Kentucky was bad. And what stood out to me, other than the awful decision by Mark Stoops to punt late, in my opinion, I don't know how much time you guys spent on that, but it doesn't feel to me like Georgia has a lot of reliable playmakers on offense. Right?
That's what the 2 things I was going to ask you. Are you more worried about them stopping the run when you know the run's coming, or the lack of explosive play?
And I was up in Wisconsin last week watching the Alabama game. What I was impressed by was Jalen Milroe made some really good throws from the pocket. He was accurate. Now, I think he's going to be up and down on his accuracy, but it appears to me, Ryan Williams, 17 years old, nobody seems to be able to get that Alabama has right now, if I were breaking it down, better playmakers on offense than Georgia does. Yeah. And so at home, with that crowd at night, early preview, I think Alabama's going to beat Georgia.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one.
I can't wait to watch.
Even when Georgia beat Clemson by 30, I really wasn't impressed by their
You
offense.
tweeted that at halftime.
Yeah, I was like, you can tell Lad McConkey and Brock Bowers were huge pieces
that was
of
what
this
to me.
football.
Like,
Yeah,
if you
to
go
watch
back-
him especially watching Brock with the Raiders.
The safety net that Brock was for Carson Beck last
saved him
year.
against Auburn, Clay.
Against
Oh, he went
Auburn
to him
late.
every time he needed a first down.
Yeah.
They couldn't cover him. And so I don't know who that player is right now for Georgia. Kirby Smart's defense is going to be elite. They're not going to give up very many points. But I think that Jalen Milroe in the passing game has a little bit better options than Carson Beck does. So my early read, I think that Georgia's a 2.5-point favorite in that one, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
In the look ahead for next week, I'm going to be on Alabama.
I think you're 100% right on there. I'm interested to see that line movement, where it's going to go. But it's always great to talk to you, Clay. Thanks for
Hey,
coming
you guys
by,
keep it up. It's good to see you.
Yes, sir.
too.
Appreciate
Always
it.
good to
Definitely got
get
to
to
do
see
this again. There we
to
go.
see stars.
Tell your son good luck tonight.
Let's go.
On the snap count reduction. So they're in the championship game for October 2nd, which he is ecstatic about.
There we go.
And it's fun. I'm looking forward to being a dad who gets to go to high school football games.
The purest football.
The purest.
Best level there is,
It's
man.
already fun just getting to go with him in 8th grade. But so next year he'll start to be on the team in high school, and I can't wait.
I'm gonna give Hugh a text.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. No, believe me, Josh already. There's no chance. He's going to Tennessee. We all know it. We appreciate you guys. Hit that subscribe button. Again, hope you have a fantastic weekend. Remember, if you got YouTube TV, use that quad box, right? Even Dabo's using it now. So if not, then you're way behind the times. We'll catch y'all next week.
Republicans are Nazis. You cannot separate yourselves from the bad white people.
Growing up, I never thought much about race. It never really seemed to matter that much, at least not to me.
Am I racist?
I would really appreciate it if you
I'm
left.
trying to learn. I'm on this journey.
If I'm gonna sort this out, I need to go deeper undercover.
They gon' say I'm racist.
Joining us now is Matt, certified DEI expert.
Here's my certification.
And what you're doing is you're stretching out of your whiteness. This is more for you in this field. Is America inherently racist?
The word inherent is challenging
I want
there.
to rename the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument.
America is racist to its bones.
So inherently.
Yeah, this country is a piece of
White.
folks. Trash. White supremacy. White woman. White boy.
Is there a black person around here? What's a black person right here? Does he not
They gon'
exist?
say I'm racist.
Hi, Robin.
Hi. What's your name?
I'm Matt.
Just had to ask who you are because you have to be careful.
Never be too careful.
They gon' say you racist.
In theaters now. Rated PG-13.